Hey everyone, this is Justin, aka Creamy Discs. On today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to do a rift style die. And if you don't know what that looks like, here it is. So it's basically one color surrounded on both sides by another color and separated by black. So we're going to be dyeing today onto another bottom stamp destroyer, just like the last video, but you can use any premium plastic white dye that you have or that you can buy. I will say Innova has factory second white discs on their website for sale. They're like $12 a piece. So those are really, really good starter discs, and I'd highly recommend you buying some of those if you want to like dive into dyeing really hard. Otherwise, you can use whatever white plastic you have lying around. I would recommend highly that you use white, because if you're dyeing onto colored discs, it poses all sorts of other problems with how the disc is going to come out. All right, with that being said, let's dive right in. All right, for materials for this dye, I have a toothpick for swirling the dye around, just similar to how we did it in the last video. And I'm actually going to be using this airbrush. You don't have to have this. You can actually use a straw, or some people use like an empty syringe to blow air through. I just get lightheaded when I blow through a straw too much trying to dye, so I ended up buying one of these airbrushes. And I like it a lot because it lets me sort of shape the dye to how I like. But I wouldn't recommend you invest that much money into your first few dyes. Just use a straw. Okay, we're all set up and ready to go. I have all my colors set aside already. For black, I'm going to be using Pro Chemical and Dye Onyx. And for my yellow, I have 4 shades of each color set aside. So for my yellow, I'm actually going to be using Neon Lemon Zest, which is here, Sun Yellow, Dandelion, and I actually like to accentuate my yellows with orange, so we're going to be using Clear Orange. You might recognize that from last video as well. And then for my purples, I have Lilac, Neon Royal Purple, which is one of my favorite colors, Pansy, and then I'm going to accentuate it a little bit with some fuchsia. So let's go ahead and pour the glue in. Okay, again, we're going to try to get this glue to about 1/4 of an inch. We're going to let it make its way to the sides of the tin there. Okay, we're going to start by laying down the black. So we need 2 lines of black dye. Again, I'm drawing from the top of the dye bottle, and I'm just going to drop it across the bed here. That's 1. And I need a little more. 2. I dropped from a height of about 1/2 inch or so. The higher you drop from, the more the dye might spread out when it hits the glue. But I like to keep my black dye kind of tight, and we're actually going to be tightening it up here before we drop any more colors. So I'm going to use my airbrush, and I'm just going to go from both sides and maybe pushing this black together a little bit. So I'm just tightening this line up a little bit. So that's that one. Then other side. Again, you can use a straw for this. This might take a little more time. And this also isn't a hugely necessary step. You can get by without blowing at all. Okay, so I like to try to keep it as symmetrical as possible. Obviously, it'll never be perfectly symmetrical. Okay, so we have our 2 black lines. Now we add color. So what I like to do is I like to add color on the sides of the black first before I add my shades. And I usually put the darkest shade of whatever colors I'm using next to the black. And you don't have to do that. That's just kind of what I like to do. But I think it works well with the black. So my darkest shade of yellow is actually going to be Clear Orange. So now is where we decide where we want the yellow to be. Do we want it to be on the outside or the inside? I think for this one, let's put the yellow on. Let's put the yellow on the inside. So I'm just going to drop it next to the black and let it work its way over to it from the same height, about 1/2 inch. Again, this is Clear Orange. I get a little more. Okay, I got my orange. Now I want to go to the other side, and I'm going to get my lilac, because that's my darkest shade of purple. We're dropping the lilac down. A little more. And the next side, I'll draw more dye. Okay. That's good. So here is where we're going to add our other shades. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop my dandelion. And you can do sort of whatever you want with this. You don't have to have 4 shades of every color. You could do it with 1 or 2. You could just have 1 single color on either side. That's totally fine. So I'm just going to drop a little bit of dandelion. And then I'm going to grab my sun yellow. I'm not going to add a ton of this. Just a little bit. Because I think I want to add a little more lemon zest. And then I'm going to try to fill in all like the remaining white space with this lemon zest on the dye bed. If you overtake another color, like the orange or the dandelion, that's totally fine. It'll just mix together a little bit. I think I got most of it. And then we're going to get our purples. I'm going to grab pansy. We're going to drop some pansy on both sides. We're going to grab neon royal purple. Fill in the rest of that white space there. And then for an accentuation, I'll grab my fuchsia. And I'm just going to add like maybe 2 or 3 drops of fuchsia. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. On both sides. Okay. Now, here's where I'm going to grab my toothpick, and I'm going to mix these together a little bit. And this is where your skills from last video might come in handy, because we're basically doing that swirl design in either area of color. So I'm just going to start swirling a little bit. You can do this as much or as little as you want. I try not to get up into the black, because I don't like to swirl my black down in the color. But if that happens, it's totally fine. It doesn't look bad or anything. All right, so that's purple. Other side of the purple. You can see I'm getting a little bit of the lilac and drawing it down. Again, that's fine. Okay, swirled on both sides of the purple. I'm going to wipe off my toothpick with my paper towel here. And then we're going to get the middle. Swirl this yellow area around. This bed might turn out a little more orange than yellow. Dandelion takes on orange pretty well as well, but I think that's totally fine. Okay. We've got our rift created. What I like to do is, after this is done, I grab my airbrush and I sort of tighten the colors up a little bit. You could easily just drop the disc down right now and it would look fine, but I try to eliminate as much white space in the middle of the black as I possibly can. Not always successfully, but this is going to help with that a little bit. So I'm going to start with the left side and blow this in a little bit. So I'm just blowing the dye over top of the black a little bit, or into the black, so that black line is even tighter. And you can see the glue will sort of try to return to the original shape it was at, which is what we want. And then we'll go to the other side, into the purple. This also creates a kind of cool pattern, I think, too. So I think this defined the black a little bit more on this side. And we'll go to it again to try to tighten it up a little more. This I sort of do by feel. I just kind of go until I feel like it's in a good place, and I've gone too far many times. It's sort of a... You'll feel it more as you do more dyes. I still don't always know quite when to stop. And we're going to the other side now. Tighten up this black. Okay. And maybe it would have looked better had we not done this. I don't know. But that's the fun of dyeing. You learn a lot every single time you do a dye. And it very much rewards experimenting as you go along and trying new things. One thing I wish I had done more, and probably still wish that I do to this day, is take notes on exactly what I did for every disc I ever did. Like what colors I used, what methods I used, if I did anything special on them. So if you're really getting serious about it, I would recommend you try to take as many notes as possible so you can reference back to those. Okay, so I have created some white space. You can see like that's a big one right there. And then there's a little bit in the purple. So what I do here is usually I will go back with one of my colors and I'll fill those in. So I'm actually going to grab my lightest shade of yellow. I'm going to grab my sun yellow and drop it there. Just to try to fill in that white space I created. It's not a big deal if you don't get all of it. A little bit of white showing can accentuate your disc even more. Gives a little more personality. For this one, we're going to go with some royal purple. There wasn't a lot of white space here, so it's not a huge issue. I'm just going to add a little bit. Oh, I didn't get any. My neon royal purple is almost out. Need to refill it soon. Okay, there. Looks good. I didn't get all of it, but that's totally fine. Because now I'm going to mix up the dye bed again. So we're going to go back into the yellow. And we're going to do some more swirls. Because I want to swirl through those drops I just made. Okay. And then the purple. Wiping it off. That side, now this side. By the way, I am dyeing on a turntable, which is very useful for just being able to maneuver the disc around. Again, that's not an investment I'd recommend you make if you're just starting out, but it's super helpful. Okay, purple is swirled, yellow is swirled. I think this dye bed is ready. So let's drop the disc. Okay, I have my bottom stamp destroyer here. I'm ready to lay it down. So what I like to do is go with the direction of the black line because for whatever reason, onyx can tend to smear a little bit. So when you're laying the disc in the bed, what can happen is some dye can grab onto the disc and sort of like peel across it. And it would create a little smear effect, which doesn't necessarily look bad, but I don't really want that to happen. I don't really want my black to smear into my yellow. So I'm gonna drop the disc in the direction of the black line, sort of like this. So again, we're going to very carefully position ourselves and drop the disc at an angle. Making sure to slowly contact that dye. And I'll put a little bit of pressure on it. So the dye encompasses the whole surface area. And there we go. Okay, we have our disc in the dye bed, and now comes the hardest part of dyeing discs. It's waiting. We have to wait 24 hours. So exercise some patience, put it on a shelf somewhere. I know that you have the strength within you to hold out and wait. And I will be back to show you the finished product of this dye. Okay, we've been patient, and now we will be rewarded. Here is our rift dye. Look at that. Pretty cool. Creamy? I think so. There you have it. Let me know how yours turned out. I would love to see pictures if anyone tries this method. Remember that don't expect it to be perfect the first time around. This was years of iteration, and this disc is not perfect. No dye is ever going to be perfect, and you just kind of have to come to terms with that. But they're all beautiful in their own way. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like down below. Leave a comment down below. Let me know how you feel about the video. Let me know what other styles you'd like to see in the future. And as always, stay creamy.